Aren't they? They make me so happy.
It is, yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. First on the list is public input.
My name is John Renz. I live at 2755 Statues Creek Road in Eagle Creek. And not on the topic we're addressing tonight, but I understand that the board is going to be looking at modifying the bylaws again soon. And if this is done in a workshop, there will be no public input. So I would like to take this time to have a little bit of my say. The stated purpose of modifications is to bring the library policies and procedures into compliance with those of the city. And there's probably merit in that goal. But there have been proposals made in the past purported to serve that purpose, which I considered unjustifiable. And while I have not yet heard the specific new proposals, I anticipate they'll be much the same. So I would like the board to consider my viewpoint. Specifically, I oppose the elimination of the position of the board treasurer. This action serves for no good purpose I can imagine. The reason given for the suggestion is that the position might be filled by someone who is not a citizen investigator and who therefore cannot sit on the city budget committee. Well, that to me is the whole point, is that the board represents and serves the district independent of the city. The treasurer it's not been usual or necessary for them to sit on the committee. They can walk over and receive and present information. The responsibilities are more broad than that. They include financial review and presentation of clear financial information to library management, to the board, and to the district at large. There is no other financial review in place. Excuse me. The ballot measure that we voted into law had very specific language about the money. And that language was incorporated into the cooperative intergovernmental agreement, which is a lawful contract between the county and the cities, which are entrusted to handle these huge amounts of money. But there is no review. So historically in this district, that has been a responsibility of this board. It has over the last few years disappeared, and there is no longer anything. I think that we cannot assume we live in a perfect world. We have to have not only good laws, but good systems in place. Therefore, in order for us to have transparency, which we all talk about and which is nothing more than the availability of information, I think it's going to be decided by this board on this issue, whether or not we have good, accurate, easily accessible information. I not only want us to keep the treasurer, but I would suggest that we appoint a financial committee, a citizens committee, to work with the treasurer and the city to produce a monthly financial report that is clear, understandable, comprehensive, and suitable consumption for the board and for the citizenry. Our community is invested, and they are certainly entitled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Are there any other comments? Okay, then let's go on to reviewing the minutes from the September 27th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Bob abstains, and so was her.
Okay, so everybody received the information that I sent out last week, and I'll just ask if there are any questions about anything that's included in the packet.
I notice that under monthly statistics, we're continuing to see a reduction in holds filled, checkouts, e-book circulation is up nicely. The self-checkouts, total checkouts, check-ins, public computer sessions, website visits, do you have any idea what's going on?
Yeah, it was really slow in September. The only thing I can guess is that we had some really nice pockets of weather, and then it just kind of boom, slammed into winter. But yeah, that's my only theory. The numbers, and it seems like the traffic through the library have been down a little bit, but actually since the weather's gone colder, we're seeing an uptick. So I'm optimistic that this will continue through winter, and we are planning some initiatives to do some outreach that I have.
Great.
Yeah.
One thing I was also, since we did not have in August, we didn't have a July meeting, and then I missed the August meeting, but I haven't seen a final budget reconciliation for 2011-2012 fiscal year that gives us the final statistics on income and expenditures. Is it possible to get that to us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
And out of curiosity, I was wondering when we get the library funds from the county.
January.
Is it January?
January. If there are any other questions?
The only other comment I have, and I was once again looking at, and I understand that these are just budgetary amounts and they're not, that we're very early in the fiscal year and stuff, but I'm, based on our revenues versus expenditures, we're up over 70% of the total operating budget is budgeted for employees once again, and I understand that those are just budget amounts, but I just feel that that's excessive, and the former director quoted national statistics of 60 to 70% being the status quo for employee expenses as opposed to everything else, and I would really like to see us strive to bring that in line. I think if we looked at last year's statistics, we would see that it's even a higher percentage because we did not spend all of our materials budget and some things in other areas. Now, we may have had some savings there too, so that's kind of why I'd like to see the final reconciliation of last year, but I think we need to continue to strive to be closer to the 60% mark as opposed to up over 70%.
We ended up spending all of the last year's budget for collection development, and I think you'll notice a substantial savings in things like health insurance because Anna left in May. Substantial savings on her salary. We had 4 or 5 months where we had no children's librarian to pay, and we had just one person to pay, 2 people full time. So there's going to be a big savings on that. I think you'll notice
Good.
in the next year.
Well, I did notice that actually we have a close to 10% increase in at least the budget. And again, I'm speaking of budgeted amounts, not actual expenditures. but we're looking at a close to 10% increase in the amount of health insurance that we're paying. And again, I know that that's not within your control there, but it is. The health insurance is just an incredible amount of money for the two people that get it. And of course it's a budgeted amount, but a 10% increase over last year is significant, and there doesn't seem to be any effort, certainly on the city's part, to rein that in some way. I'm hoping that over the course of time that will become a priority for the city and the taxpayers. It's a very large part of our revenue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just going down a list of some of the things that are going on in the library. In case any of you haven't met her, this is Andy Sprague, who's our new librarian, and she started about 3 weeks ago, and she's learning the job. There's a lot to learn, and she's doing a great job so far. And so I hope you all will welcome her into this community.
Welcome.
And make her feel at home. She's going to really work hard.
We're glad to have you
The rest of
here.
us do.
I'm glad to be here.
Great, thank
I'm
you.
very glad to be here.
Next up, when we had the boot camp with our staff, we had a lot of ideas, and one of the ideas that came up is people thought we should have a donations jar to give people in the community an opportunity to donate some money. So I've been talking to Doris at Sunnyside because they had a nice box at their library, and she mentioned to me that they had a glass container that they used to use, and she said she would give it to me. So we do now have a donations jar out on the circulation desk. We racked up in the first week probably over $40, maybe $50, and it was just really astonishing and wonderful to see that kind of outpouring of support. So thank you for listening and watching. And we also had talked about at the boot camp back in May, June 1st, I think, about starting a library blog, which is just a way to communicate with the public a lot more. So that has been done. It's waiting to be activated until I write something, which I hope will be maybe by the end of the month or beginning of November. It's on our webpage. It will have a tab next to the, I think it's next to About Us. I'm still kind of wondering about a name. I thought I might call it something like the living room. I'm not sure. Entertain some suggestions. Anybody has any? So anxious to get that going. And another thing that Rochelle has put on the website is something called a library value calculator. And this is just a way to let people know if you had to spend your own money on a lot of the services that the library offers you, this is what you would end up paying. So the purpose of that is just to kind of make people understand what the library brings to this community. And it's below the Google search box on the left on our website. So have a look at it, play with it a little bit, just see what you think. And another of the ideas that came out of our brainstorming meeting then was to have an idea box / comment box. So since I'm a patron of the New Seasons Market, I know that they have a card like this that people can, it's just called Talk to Us. So I was thinking of just having something simple like this, and so if someone has a book request or a materials request or a comment they want to make about the library, suggestion, this will be the place to do it. It has an optional space. If they want to be contacted, they can put their contact information and we can get back to them. I thought I could either answer them privately or on the blog. It depends on how many people are interested. So looking to get that going in November as well.
Like that Okay, moving on to old business. Meeting of the county reps regarding the LDAC.
Okay. So we talked at the last meeting about some of the efforts that Mr. Felix Ringberg had made on our behalf with someone at the Portland State, Charles Reinerson at Portland State, about our service area population. And I was extremely grateful of his efforts on this. Last Thursday, Bill Elliott, our city manager, and I went to Oregon City and met with Laura and Tracy from the county. And the purpose of that was just to kind of get things straight, because neither one of us were, on that at the time. Craig was the representative. So we just wanted to get a better idea of what was, how this all worked, because Mr. Ringberg wanted us to, do we want to proceed with this or not? And really what's come out of that is the numbers were very, very similar. They explained the process to us, and they explained that the time to do any kind of raising of red flags about the numbers was last year. It was like, it's past. And that anybody, the LDAC rep can raise it even now. It doesn't just have to be the city manager. But at this point, it's really a done deal. And the difference in numbers was only something like 193 people, population-wise. So I think to kind of open this can of worms again, it's not a good idea. And Bill, you might have some input on that too.
Yeah, one of the things that they pointed out to us was that up until the 2010 census came out, they were using the Portland State University projected numbers. And every 10 years, those get adjusted to the actual census. One of the issues that they always have, especially in the rural areas, are people that don't respond to the census. And unfortunately, everybody has that. The other thing was that I didn't realize was we don't get the money that's collected in our district. All the money that's collected from all the districts goes into a pot. And it's divided up based on two factors. First is the population of the cities, and the second is the assessed values of the unincorporated areas. And it's this wacky formula. I tried to compute it to see if I could come out with it, and I came within $10,000 of what they did. So I'm thinking that it's probably right. But we're affected by compression of the taxing districts, the other taxing districts other than our own. It's just this phenomenally complex formula that they use. And so she gave us these worksheets and everything, and I played with them. And our population, when we asked her about the numbers, she says, the numbers are the numbers are the numbers. The county will not challenge the census numbers. It just won't. She says, unless there's some change in a district line or one of those, the census block lines, they just accept those numbers, and that's what they are. So I'm not willing to pursue it, this particular objection, because I just think it's going to be a fruitless effort. We've been corrected, I guess was the term. We did course correction to actual for the census. And now we'll start using the PSU projections again. And so plan on 10 years from now, another correction, either up or down. That's the way it works. PSU always has what I consider more accurate numbers, but the census are for controls every 10 years.
So the upside to that is that next year there's not going to be huge loss that we have. And that's an advantage, but it could go up a few $1,000s and go down a few $1,000s. So that's positive. But in 2020, 2021, because it took them over a year to get the numbers going, it could happen again.
Moving back to the census again then.
Who is our LDAC rep currently?
That is me.
So Johnny was not, the recommendation of the board wasn't followed?
Yeah, we took to the council, and the recommendation was that we just appoint the library director. And then the library director has the option at that point to either be the rep or appoint somebody else to go in her stead on the council.
That's interesting.
questions any further about that? Okay, on new business, we really need to get going on replacing our computers. So we can't do this all at once, and in the past we realized that we could do a few at a time, and this is what was recommended to us because if you replace everything at once, the chance of it all going bad at once is pretty high. So what I'd like to do now is look at purchasing some new public computers that will have updated software, which we totally desperately need. And the upside to that also is that we will be able to sell the computers that we desession. What's going to happen is they'll be sent to network to have the hard drive swapped with this from the software, because since we own the software license for Word and the various other programs, whoever buys those cannot have that. So we will sell the computers. I don't know how much they're worth, but I can find it out. We'll be able to get some money from that, but whoever buys them will have to add on whatever they want to add on. Talking to Kwang Kai from Network Manager, he's decided that he wants to move into Dell PCs, which is a much better quality computer. Those will come with a longer warranty. It'll be 5 years versus 3 years. And he feels that they have a better capacity to go with some of the planned upgrades that are coming, we hope, to this area in the next few years. So we're looking at probably $1,000, including the software per computer, which is more than they were before. Before they were maybe $450 to $500 a piece.
Do you know approximately how old the present computers are?
The present, there are 3 that were purchased 2 years ago. The rest of them were purchased, I believe, when this building opened. I have to check on that. So we're going on 6 years for most of them. And the software, really, that's the worst part, because when someone comes in with a newer version of Windows or Office, for instance, and it doesn't work, then there's been some glitches and incompatibility issues. So yeah, I was thinking about trying to get 4 or 5 of those, and according to Denise, we've got it in the budget line for minor equipment purchases, which is $6,400. And I don't want to spend all of that on computers this time, because what's happening is we need things like a receipt printer. I had to replace one of those, and that's about $3 something. So instead of spending that entire amount, maybe just doing 4 now, or 4 or 5. I should have a more precise estimate next week after George does a little bit more smoothly. Because some of the other libraries are also replacing their public computers. So I guess I'm just, looking for some input.
I'd like to be able to do that and to get a better deal, because the libraries, are we able to buy together?
I think so, but I don't know.
How many total are we looking at purchasing?
Probably about 4 or 5, just this year.
Well, total, how many do you need? How many?
With others, you mean?
Yeah, how many
How many
total?
do we have?
Yeah, how many do we have that need?
26. We have 26 minus 3 that were purchased 2 years ago, so we need 23.
Have we put to use the laptops that the foundation purchased?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they're used every week on Wednesday.
Have you considered asking the foundation for a grant to assist or to do the purchase?
We can do that.
I think they might be receptive to that. And it would be, I mean, I understand that things need to be replaced, and I personally have no objection. I think it's a great idea, and especially if you're going to phase them in, I think that's great. It needs to be done, and you're absolutely correct about the software. If you don't keep up with it, it ceases to be very functional. So.
And it makes us look bad. I don't want us to look bad. So yes, I would consider asking the foundation for that.
Well, what about moving? Why don't we just? I would move that we recommend shopping for 4 or 5 new ones right out of the gate, out of the budget that we have, so that you can go ahead and get that rolling and implement that, and then if we could go to the foundation and maybe get the next whatever they would be willing to fund and get the next 4 or 5 in line, because you would have the pricing for them all kind of a piece right now, and we might be able to replace a third to half of them right now.
Yeah, you might get a discount, like lights when we
Right.
and the like.
Right, I don't either, but
And licensing again doesn't cover all of those number. So.
It would be an advantage. The more we can buy at once, I think, the better it would be. And it would just need to be the same. They would all have to be the same computer. Like if we decide we're going to get these Dell computers, whatever we got from the foundation would have to be the same. Because it just has to be uniform.
Right. We want to be
So,
uniform.
yeah,
I mean, so,
yeah.
Buy with the same.
it just makes,
Yeah.
it makes sense to just, instead of duplicating your efforts as well, to just go ahead and do it at a fell swoop and at least replace a good chunk of them.
Product State's actually been doing, or giving with Dell for many years, and they're good computers.
They're quality machines, and like anything with the public, you want to make sure it's heavy duty.
They get a lot of use. They really do. And for the ones that are out there, they're kind of no name, but they've taken some hits, and they're still standing. But we've had to take a lot of them out. So yeah, I'm glad that we can upgrade. And so the recommendation from the board would be to go ahead and start with 4 or 5 through network, and then approach the foundation for a grant as well.
Do you need a motion for that?
No.
Well, I have a little discussion. I would like to see us consider replacing more like 1/3 rather than half, because then the next time you buy, you're almost exactly, you've got to spend almost the same amount of money again, and we might want to buy the rest next year, and that might be kind of a big chunk. So maybe 1/3 rather than half of them to replace.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, if she has 26, I mean,
Right.
if we're talking 8 or 9, then that would be, if we could get the foundation to consider half of those and the budget, the library budget itself to cover.
So it doesn't
half of
make
that third.
quite such a big chunk.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
Do
so
we need a motion, or we need to just have a consensus on that?
it sounds like everybody's in agreement.
It sounds like a good.
Okay, so go for just go for a third at this time. Okay.
It would be nice if once you got the final figures, you could email us and let us know what it is.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and just in case I didn't mention it, that includes, mouse, CPU, screen, everything, software. So that, the $1,000, give or take a few, that includes everything. So, okay, I will let you know what comes up
Thank you.
on that. And thanks very much.
Since the next meeting date's on Thanksgiving, so I don't think we want to meet on Thanksgiving, so what would you like to do to deal with that? Would you like to reschedule? Unless someone's like bringing dinner.
The previous Thursday is the 15th, and the following Thursday is the 20th. If people want to stick with Thursdays.
We skipped July, so maybe it'd be a good idea to meet in November.
I could actually meet the 29th.
That works for me.
That works for me too.
Okay. So our next meeting will be Thursday, November 29th.
move on to president and trustee comments. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming. I appreciate it. We can't really have a library board meeting without the community involvement. And thank you for electing me as president. I hope I do a good job.
You came back and you were president. You can be too short.
I have a few comments, kind of things that I had hoped to get under old business, but we kind of moved rapidly there. And I guess I should have. No, that's okay. I should have gotten them for an ad to them, but. Some things that have kind of got dropped off the radar are strategic planning, and where is that at? And we have a report coming, and is that committee? I would like to see committees deliver. Even if they're not doing anything, say, well, the strategic committee didn't meet this month, but it'd be nice to know where our long-range planning is at, since it actually is a requirement of our bylaws and policies.
Would you like a real quick update right now?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Okay, so the strategic plan, I sent an email asking for a couple of volunteers to help me collate the survey. So once we get the survey going, and I've asked people when they can meet in November, and we're going to go from there.
Okay. The other thing, I got a couple of calls regarding the hiring process. We're very glad to have you on board, but they were asking where and when the job opening was posted.
For her position?
Yes.
Her position was not posted. I consulted with Bill about that, and it didn't have to be posted. I went through the Emporia program, and I worked with somebody that knew candidates that would work, and I went through it that way.
Okay. I just guess I was confused because I went through the handbook, and all per hiring procedures 8.1.2, all positions shall be publicized by posting an announcement in the official city newspaper and by other such methods as are required by the provisions of the Americans with Disability Act, such as notice to individuals or groups representing disabled individuals to find suitable applicants. And then it goes on to say what needs to be included in that. So I guess I'm a little confused as to what the city policy is regarding that.
Since I was new to this, I went to Bill and Denise for a couple questions regarding this position, and was given the go-ahead to do what I wanted to do.
Okay, well, there was people that were interested in the position who didn't get a chance to even apply because there wasn't an open process. So I guess that concerns me just a little bit. That I'm not disappointed with the choice, don't get me wrong, but I just feel that we should once again follow the established bylaws and procedures, if at all possible. And then the other thing I had was we talked about maintenance, we talked about committees last time, and I would really like to see the maintenance committee, that needs to be done, and I haven't had a lot of time to devote to that at this point, but I think even more important is that we form a budget committee, because what has happened in the past is here we're at October and we're staring at our November meeting, and about the time that we even start talking about budget, it's done. And again, the bylaws and policies are fairly clear in that regard, that the board needs to be involved in that process. So I would just like to see us form a budget committee. Maybe we could consider that and actually get it done at the next meeting.
Is that something we can put on the agenda for next meeting?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Or we can discuss it some more.
Yeah, thank you.
So what is the procedure? I mean, is that for the city of Estacada, or is that our bylaws about hiring?
That was the city of Estacada's employee manual.
That it had to be publicly.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
That's what I'm reading now. You know, I'm not up to speaking on all of this stuff. I got a couple of calls from people who were interested in how that process went, and they were interested in applying for the job, and they were disappointed that it was already
I'm very surprised
closed.
because usually anything to do with city government is just wide open. I mean, you know, your salaries, I think, are all public, aren't they?
That is not
So-
record.
So it didn't have to be, the job notice didn't have to be in the paper or anything?
We looked for qualified people. Michelle had her contacts out there. We just, we needed somebody, so we just went and got somebody. And I think we did a really good job. In terms of the advertising and those kind of things, I rely on Denise for those things. And if that wasn't done, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't aware of that. So I just accepted the recommendation of Michelle.
Yeah, I'm fine and I'm happy, and I'm sure you would have been overwhelmed and had work to do if it in public, because, you know, you would have probably got lots of applicants.
That is part of the problem. You get people that are not qualified, and you get people you
Yeah, it would be work.
There, just for the Sunnyside opening, for a similar job, there were 30 applicants.
I thought there would be more like 100 or something.
Just because it's difficult, though, doesn't mean we don't follow due process and the policies is kind of my feeling of that.
Right. Well, like I said, I consulted with Denise and Bill, and didn't really have until I got there.
And it's absolutely a great choice.
Yeah, I'm not arguing the choice. I'm just
Yeah,
saying that I think we
yeah.
should follow the
Yeah.
procedures that are in place.
Otherwise, you get a lot of angry people here.
Yeah.
But it is definitely something to look at in the
Okay,
future.
well, I do remember bringing this up and sending everybody an email about it, and so, I wish you would have spoken up then. It's done now.
Yeah.
It's just, I sent an email out saying that I'm gonna hire somebody, and I talked about it in a board meeting, how I was gonna go about it, and
You invited us in to meet her
I did invite everybody in.
before she was hired.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I really tried to include the board in this and not, there's nothing underhanded about it. And Janet showed up to meet her. And
Well, you made a great choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to make it clear that there was nothing under the table, that I was trying to include everybody.
No, we did.
You asked your boss, your city manager, and he said, yeah, he should know. So I'm not.
You did everything you could.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, just
Yeah, I'm not-
to make it clear. And if anybody wants to submit an application, you can always forward, if someone calls you, just forward. I'm sorry. Just if anyone ever calls about those things, feel free to forward them to me, and maybe they can just talk to me, and I would have looked at their application.
But nobody knew it was.
It was already a done deal.
When they called you. Okay.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you for putting up with me.
Not a problem. Anything from James?
I'm glad to have Jane on board with us. I'm happy.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard, Jay.
Thank you.
It's nice to have a full board. And thank you again, Michelle.
You're welcome.
And I guess we'll see everyone again next month.
Great.